Will the Australian government buy REX Airlines, the regional operator? That's the big question down under. Before we get into that story, welcome to another edition of Daily Airline News. I'm Jeffrey Thomas. Please subscribe to us, please like us, and please do leave us your comments. We'd love to hear from you, and your feedback is very valuable. Now, let's go down under today to look at the Australian dilemma with REX Airlines. For those of you who don't know, REX is a regional operator in Australia that has about 58 Saab 340 regional turboprops, and they serve approximately 55 destinations, of which 45 are in the regions, which is for Australia, the outback, some very remote communities. And they provide a very valuable lifeline to these communities, and many of these routes are subsidised. Now, just out of COVID, REX tried a misadventure, acquiring jets that incidentally were grounded during the Virgin bankruptcy and re-administration. And they started operations between capital cities in Australia. That foray failed miserably, which then sent the whole organisation into receivership. Ernst & Young, the accounting firm, are now the administrators, and the Australian government has been bailing out REX to keep the regional operations going. But so far, Ernst & Young have not been able to attract a new buyer. And there's a reason for this. The problem is that any potential buyer, like a Qantas or a Virgin Australia, of the REX operation, not only has to take on the debt, which is reported to be about 500 million, but also has to have the capital cost of replacing the Saab fleet. And there would be no change out of probably about $1 billion. Because the fleet, of which there's about 58, 30 are operational, 25 or so are grounded and being used for spares. But if you replace half the fleet, $800 to $1 billion Australian would be required to do that. Also, the aircraft that would be used would probably be the ATR 42, great airplane, except that you require an additional flight attendant, and you also now require security screening at outlying airports. Now, this would increase the operational costs. So, for the government to get a buyer, it really needs to sweeten the pot with probably 10-year subsidy deals for many of the routes that REX currently serves. Typically at the moment, you get a 2 or 3 or 4 year deal, depending on circumstances, but that's not bankable. You need a 10-year deal at least to secure the capital required to replace that fleet. So the government's in a dilemma, and there's a lot of debate down under saying governments can't get involved with airlines. Well, they used to own Qantas up till 1995 and its domestic affiliate, which had merged with Australian Airlines, which was formerly Trans-Australian Airlines. So the government is no stranger to airline ownership. And Qantas's biggest competitors, Emirates, Qatar, Etihad, Singapore Airlines, Air New Zealand, Garuda, Malaysian, Thai, are all partially or totally government owned. So it's not unusual. In fact, it's pretty common, government ownership, and for all the right reasons too. And there are many in Australia that would argue that Qantas should never have been listed. However, that's another story. So the government's facing a dilemma. Do we buy REX or do we not? And there's shrill calls from both sides of the argument for the pros and cons of whether or not it's a good thing. Some say no, put it in the hands of lots of smaller operators. Well, yes, Australia could do that. But one thing to bear in mind was that when Ansett collapsed in 2001, that's Ansett Australia, which was the number 2 domestic airline, it was the combination and amalgamation of 66 airlines. That's how many airlines had failed in the 40 or so years of Ansett history, which they had merged with. And in actual fact, REX is the combination of two of those, Hazelton and Kendall Airlines. They came out of the Ansett wreckage, were merged together, packaged, and sold as REX to Singaporean interests. So if Australia wants stability in the regions, particularly to the most outlying and smallest communities, the government really does need to step in one way or another and give stability to the industry. What Australia needs is stability for the regions, because one of the big pushes of both sides of politics in Australia is to get people to move to the regions, because most of Australia's population lives on the coast. Thank you for watching another edition of Daily Airline News. Please subscribe to us, please like us, and please do leave your comments. Leave your comments about what you think should happen in regional Australia. And of course, let me add, the Canadians and the Finns and other nationalities, they support those regional communities beautifully with all sorts of subsidies because they need to. Anyway, I'm Jeffrey Thomas. Thanks for watching.